So facing fears, it can be difficult, I think, because a lot of the time, you you're familiar with the concept of having to face your fears, but then you had to face haven't had to face the new thing that you're facing. So sometimes it's like a new phenomenon or a new experience, and you kind of haven't experienced that before. So then it's like uncomfortable and it's difficult and it's almost against human nature, like extremely against human nature. And do that thing that you're super afraid of, and it's much more common to avoid it temporarily or just like every single time that you come against it. And I think if we as human beings always had to do things that we're afraid of like constantly, like we wouldn't be able to live. Like you can only handle so much of it because it's like kind of tearing your like soul and stuff, and it's really difficult. But then once in a while there'll always be like new moments and new experiences or new like kind of crossroads on your path or just on your journey or in your life where like it's a new thing and you're terrified, but you force yourself. Like you don't think about it, you go and you do it, and like it's like ripping a band-aid off. But then it's scary, but you only need to do it once, because once you do, then you've experienced it, then you know what it feels like, then you're not as afraid. And that's literally how you kind of do anything. Like the most extremely impossible things aren't limited because of a lack of knowledge or ability or someone smarter than you or better than you or just like more capable in some way. It's not an intelligence that lacks people or holds them back, but a lot of it is fear, is is those kind of psychological barriers. Are you willing to do things that you're terrified of, and that like everything in you is screaming no? And it's a unique situation and an uncomfortable situation and a unique fear that you've never faced before. In those moments, can you go and like it's like ripping at your heart, ripping at your soul, and like everything in you is like yelling like no, and you can't do it, and you're terrified, like scared shitless. Like in those situations, can you go and just do it, like not think and shut your brain off, shut your brain off and just showing up? um if you can, which most people don't do it, or and like even if you've done it a lot of times, it's always like it always feels like the first time when you have to face it again. It always feels like the first time when you're going to do it again, when you're going to do some new thing that's completely uncomfortable and difficult and scary and dangerous. But when you're in those situations, if you can go and do it, it always kind of pays off. And there's like kind of a discrepancy or like a difference between these kind of like decisions or like points of action, moments of action in your life where you have to do something you're terrified of that you never have before, versus doing something that's like you think you should be terrified, but it's like kind of stupid, and like it's not actually a scary thing. It's not something that you have to be courageous of. It's something that you're kind of like being stubborn about, or like trying to make a message about. Like it's difficult to kind of gauge which of those moments are ones where it's like genuinely like fear of like the unknown that's holding you back, fear of something that you know you need to do that you never have before, but that is like critical at this point in time that needs to be done. Even if it's like gradually, and even if it's just showing up and doing just a tiny bit. um, like there's a difference between those and doing something that's like kind of rash and like irrational, but like you just kind of do it like, oh, like you're pissed so you like quit your job. Like it's identifying moments which you have to be courageous versus moments where like you're taking action but it's not necessarily courageous action. The truth is that most people like fear is like a concept of like the mind, and like at most places and times you shouldn't be afraid, most things shouldn't be uncomfortable, but in those moments where they are and it's something new, it is kind of imperative to act decisively. And I think there's a big difference between like moments where it was scary and then you did it versus moments where, yeah, it is scary but you've done it before, you've done that specific action before, so it's never as scary as the first time. But when it comes to facing a fear, if it is the first time that you've kind of ever done it before, like a certain like a new discipline, a new kind of phenomenon, then yeah, it can be really scary and you have to suck it up and do it. But in those moments you always learn, and it's important, and that kind of keeps you going. So yeah.